Who gets to decide what's real or fake on Facebook? To help monitor and crack down on misinformation campaigns, Facebook partnered with the Atlantic Council, a think tank that represents some of the most powerful state and corporate interests in the world. The council's board of directors includes people who have misinformed the public into war and toppled democracies. Now they're working with Facebook to protect us from misinformation in the name of democracy. What could go wrong? Hi, I'm Matt Orfala, and here's 5 frightening facts about the Atlantic Council. Number 1, enemies of democracy. Facebook says they're working with the Atlantic Council to protect free and fair elections across the world. But some find that hard to believe, considering the Atlantic Council's longest-serving board member is Henry Kissinger, the former Secretary of State who toppled the democratic government of Chile with the CIA. The CIA, by the way, has several former directors who are also on the Atlantic Council, along with former Deputy Director of the CIA, Stephen Kappes, a convicted kidnapper. The CIA, of course, has a huge history of overthrowing democracies and propping up dictatorships, kinda like the monarchies of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Qatar, who donated millions of dollars to the Atlantic Council and don't even pretend to care about democracy. They still say it's about democracy, though.
The council's launching a partnership with Facebook in their effort to strengthen democracy.
So there's nothing to worry about, because nothing nefarious has ever been done in the name of democracy before.
We will finish the historic work of democracy in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Number 2, Bush buddies. The Atlantic Council's board of directors is filled with members of the George W. Bush administration, who launched the most disastrous disinformation campaign in modern history, starting a war that killed 1 million people over lies about 9/11 and WMDs. Incredibly, the same day the Atlantic Council announced their partnership with Facebook to fight disinformation, they were engaged in their own blatant disinformation campaign, praising George W. Bush with a Distinguished International Leadership Award. That's like giving the 9/11 hijackers an award for distinguished aviation. Number 3, they're masters of misinformation. Atlantic Council Vice Chair Richard Edelman is president and CEO of Edelman,
the biggest privately held PR firm in the world.
Edelman has been caught multiple times creating front groups like the Anti-Union Workers for Walmart, who were secretly funded by Walmart, and the anti-environmental regulation Energy Citizens, who were entirely funded by fossil fuel companies. Edelman has also done PR work for fellow Atlantic Council board member Rupert Murdoch, the billionaire owner of hundreds of media outlets, including Fox News, famous for misinforming the public.
For example, take the war. Have you shaped that agenda at all in terms of perceptions of the war, in terms of how the war is viewed?
I mean, we've tried.
Are Iraqis better off than they were 1 year ago?
Yes, they are definitely better off.
I mean, there's so many positive developments.
You go to the markets, they're thriving. Big, fat fish.
Tremendous progress in Iraq. All the kids are back at school, 10% more than when Saddam Hussein was there. There's 100% more fresh water.
The more people watched Rupert Murdoch's Fox News, the more misinformed they became. How did the Atlantic Council respond?
Hi, Rupert. Love your newspapers.
The Atlantic Council gave him an award for distinguished leadership. A leadership award to the guy who used his media empire to misinform the public into supporting a bullshit war. This is who Facebook is letting monitor their own social media empire for misinformation.
We hope you depend on us for the truth, because we're going to report the situation without an agenda or any ideological prejudice.
Number 4, they're war hawks, itching to go to war with one nation in particular.
A major threat facing our great nation, Russia.
Here's Atlantic Council International Advisor James Clapper painting all Russians as genetically untrustworthy.
Just the historical practices of the Russians, who are typically almost genetically driven to co-opt, penetrate, gain favor, whatever.
Atlantic Council Executive Vice Chair Stephen Hadley is especially eager to go to war with Russia.
If I were in my old job, I would be thinking about lethal assistance, yes. But you know, this is why you have a CIA. This is why you have covert action. And I would be thinking, do we want to do it explicitly and send a message to Putin? Or do we want to do it covertly? You know, I think, tend now to talk too much and act too little. And sometimes it's good if weapons just start showing up.
Speaking of weapons, the Council gets funding from literally the largest military contractors in the world. And the leaders of those top weapons contractors also sit at the top of the Atlantic Council. So that might be a factor in why they're so trigger happy.
Russia has chosen to be an adversary and poses a long-term existential threat to the United States.
We need to make the Russians pay a price. The other thing I would do...
We make them pay the price by killing Russians.
Yes.
And killing Iranians.
Yes. Covertly. So you don't tell the world about it, right? You don't stand up at the Pentagon and say, we did this, right? But you make sure they know it in Moscow and Tehran.
And if you don't support their hawkish agenda, you might just get labeled a Russian troll. Number 5, targeting dissidents. Before partnering with Facebook, the Atlantic Council worked with the UK government to identify Twitter accounts that they said spread disinformation.
Government analysis has identified what they call Kremlin-inspired accounts.
Very extensive research they've done with the Atlantic Council, which is a think tank based in Washington.
One of those accused of being a Russian disinformation account by Atlantic Council analyst Ben Nimmo was British retiree Ian Schilling, who went on Sky News to clear his name.
Ian, so you've been identified by the government in this research as being a Russian bot, are you?
I have no Kremlin contacts whatsoever. I do not know any Russians. I have no contact with the Russian government or anything to do with them. I've got no contact with spies. I am an ordinary British citizen.
What's especially troubling is, according to Sky Defense correspondent Alistair Bunkle, one of the reasons Ian's account was identified as part of a Russian disinformation campaign was simply because he was posting a lot of tweets that were critical of the British government.
This is what the British government, one of the reasons they've highlighted your account. You have consistently and prolifically taken an anti-British standpoint.
So what happens when being consistently and prolifically critical of the government gets you labeled a troll farm by the Atlantic Council? Ian's Twitter account was suspended, and Ben Nimmo acknowledged it as a victory. But the next day, Twitter notified Ian that it was a mistake and restored his account. So at least in this case, the open exchange of ideas necessary for any healthy democracy survived. Since announcing their partnership with the Atlantic Council, Facebook has removed hundreds of accounts for inauthentic behavior, such as using fake accounts or spamming. These are real issues on the platform, so removing accounts does not automatically mean political censorship. But given the fact that the council gets funding from the US government, foreign governments, and multinational corporations, it's a legitimate concern that those interests could exert some influence over what the Atlantic Council determines to be misinformation and what accounts get removed by Facebook. But what do you think? Let's duke it out in the comments. I'm Matt Orfalea. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it on Facebook before it gets censored by the Atlantic Council.
The argument is rational.
I'm guessing they won't be removing any fake accounts created by the US military.
The US military is developing software which will allow military personnel to create multiple fake online identities.
Yeah, you know, I'm all in favor of truth, but sometimes doing things without talking about it is a more effective way to achieve your objectives.
Putting these guys in charge of protecting us from disinformation is like putting Osama bin Laden in charge of airport security.
The question is, what does it mean by being pro-Britain or pro-American? Does it mean being pro the interests of 60 million British people? Or does it mean the clique in the UK government, the cabinet, that are doing things for their own personal benefit and their cronies in the arms companies?
There's an information war going on.
The temptation to deal with it with a preemptive attack, it's strong.
Listen, we're making good progress in Iraq. Sometimes it's hard to tell it when listen to The Filter.
Thank you so much for watching, and if you'd like to help me make more videos, please support me on Patreon.